"Please don't take my brother," Apache woman cried. The rancher said, "Then I'll take you both home." The sun was already sinking low over the dry land of the southwest when the trouble came. The sky burned orange and red, and the wind carried dust across the open plains. On the edge of a large cattle ranch, a small group of people stood near a wooden fence. Horses shifted their weight. A wagon waited nearby. What looked like an ordinary evening was about to change several lives forever. A young Apache woman stood there, holding the hand of her little brother so tightly that her fingers trembled. She could feel his fear through his small palm. He was no more than 8 years old, thin from hunger, his dark eyes wide and confused. He did not fully understand what was happening, only that strangers had come, and they wanted to take him away. The men who had come were not from her people. They wore stiff clothes, boots polished with dust, and faces that showed no warmth. They spoke in firm voices, using words she had heard before, words about rules, placement, and responsibility. To them, this was routine. To her, it was the end of everything she had left. She had already lost too much. Their parents were gone. Some taken by sickness, others by hardship and hunger that followed when their land was taken and their way of life broken apart. The young woman had become a mother, protector, and guide to her brother before she was ready. Every day had been a struggle just to survive. But through it all, she had kept one promise: to never let him be taken from her. Now that promise was slipping away. One of the men reached toward the boy, signaling it was time. The child stepped back, pressing himself against his sister. His breathing became fast and shallow. That was when the young woman's strength broke through her fear. She stepped forward, her voice shaking but loud enough to stop them. "Please," she cried, her words rough but clear. "Please, don't take my brother." The land seemed to go quiet. Even the horses stilled for a moment. Her voice carried pain, desperation, and something deeper. A plea from someone who had already endured more loss than any person should. The men exchanged looks. One sighed, clearly annoyed. Another glanced toward the ranch house in the distance. That was when the rancher appeared. He had been watching from afar, standing near the porch of his house. He was a tall man, broad-shouldered, with a weathered face, shaped by years of sun and hard work. People in the area knew him as serious, quiet, and distant. He did not involve himself in other people's troubles, especially not those connected to government matters or native families. At least, that was what everyone believed. He walked closer now, his boots crunching against the dry ground. His eyes moved from the men to the girl and finally to the boy clinging to her side. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. One of the men explained quickly. The boy was to be taken away. It was required. The sister could not provide properly, they said. This was for the child's future. The rancher listened without interrupting. His face showed little reaction, but his eyes stayed on the children. The Apache woman looked at him then, hope and fear mixing in her chest. She had heard stories about men like him, ranchers with power, men who could turn people away without a second thought. Still, she stepped toward him. "Please," she said again, softer now, her voice cracking. "He is all I have." Her brother buried his face into her side. He did not cry. He was too scared for that. The rancher looked at the men again. "And if you take him," he asked, "what happens to her?" They shrugged. That was not their concern. Something shifted in the air. The rancher took a slow breath. Then he said words no one expected. "Then I'll take them both home." The men stared at him, unsure they had heard correctly. "You want responsibility for both?" one asked. "Yes," the rancher replied. "Food, shelter, work, education. I'll answer for it. The Apache woman's heart pounded. She did not understand everything he said, but she understood enough. He was offering to keep them together. The men hesitated. This was not common, but it was easier than paperwork, easier than resistance. After a moment, one nodded. "Fine," he said. "They're your responsibility now." Just like that, the decision was made. The wagon turned away, the horses were led off. The men left as they had come, with no backward glance. Silence settled again. The young woman stood frozen, unsure whether to run or collapse. Her brother slowly lifted his head and looked up at the rancher. The man met his gaze, then looked back at the sister. "You can stay," he said simply. "Both of you." She did not know whether to trust him. Every lesson life had taught her warned against it, but the alternative was far worse. She nodded once. They followed him toward the ranch house as the sun slipped below the horizon. The land stretched wide and unfamiliar around them. The house was larger than anything they had known. Wooden walls, a roof that did not leak, a porch that looked out over endless fields. Inside, everything smelled of soap, leather, and cooked food. It was overwhelming. The rancher showed them where they would sleep, a small room near the back. "Clean, safe. You'll work," he said. "We all do, but you'll eat, and no one will take him." The words settled deep in her chest. That night, as her brother slept for the first time in days without fear, the young Apache woman sat awake, staring at the ceiling. She did not know what the future held. She did not know if kindness would last, but for the first time in a long while, they were together, and for now, that was enough. The next morning arrived quietly, but nothing felt calm inside the small room at the back of the ranch house. The Apache woman woke before the sun, her body stiff from sleeping on a bed that felt too soft and unfamiliar. For a moment, she did not know where she was. Then she saw her brother curled beside her, breathing slowly, his face relaxed in a way she had not seen for a long time. They were still together. That thought brought both comfort and fear. Being together had saved them yesterday, but today was unknown. She rose carefully so she would not wake him, and stood near the small window. Outside, the land stretched wide and open. Cattle moved slowly in the distance. A rooster crowed somewhere near the barn. Life on the ranch had already begun. She wondered what was expected of her. She wondered what the rancher truly wanted in return. Kind words were easy to say, but life had taught her that safety often came with a price. When she stepped outside, the air was cool. The rancher was already awake, repairing a fence with steady hands. He nodded once when he saw her, not unkindly, but without warmth either. "You're up early," he said. "I am used to it," she replied. He pointed toward the barn. "Breakfast is ready. After that, I'll show you the work." She nodded again. She did not ask questions. She had learned long ago that survival meant listening first. Inside the kitchen, the smell of warm bread filled the air. Her brother sat at the table, his feet swinging slightly above the floor. He looked up when he saw her, relief flashing across his face. They ate quietly. The food was simple but filling. Each bite made her realize how hungry they had been before arriving here. Still, she ate slowly, careful not to appear greedy. After breakfast, the rancher took them outside. He showed her where water was kept, how to feed the chickens, and how to clean tools after use. His instructions were short and clear. He did not raise his voice. He did not threaten. Her brother was told to stay near the house and help with small tasks. The boy listened carefully, eager to do well. He wanted to prove he was not a burden. As the hours passed, The Apache woman worked steadily. Her hands were used to labor, but this was different. The work was heavy yet organized. There was structure here, rules that stayed the same from day to day. It was unfamiliar, but not cruel. Still, she stayed alert. She watched the rancher from a distance. She noticed how he spoke to the workers, firm but fair. How he corrected mistakes without shouting. How he made sure everyone ate before returning to work. By midday, the sun burned hot. Sweat ran down her back, but she did not slow down. She believed that if she worked hard enough, no one would question their place here. During a short break, she sat near the shade of a tree while her brother drank water nearby. He smiled at her, a small, hopeful smile. "Are we safe?" he asked quietly. She hesitated, then she nodded. For now. That night, as they lay in their small room, she listened to the sounds of the ranch. Wind against the walls, distant animals, footsteps moving through the house. Everything felt large and strange. Days passed like this. She worked from morning to evening. She learned how the ranch ran, where everything belonged, what rules could not be broken. Her brother began helping more, carrying small buckets, feeding animals, running messages. The rancher kept his word. No one came to take the boy. No one spoke of sending him away. But not everyone on the ranch was pleased. Some workers whispered when she passed. Some looked at her with curiosity, others with quiet dislike. She heard words she did not understand fully, but the tone was enough. She kept her head down and focused on her work. One afternoon, a worker refused to take a tool from her hand, letting it fall to the ground instead. She said nothing.
She picked it up and continued. She knew that reacting would only bring trouble.
The rancher noticed. That evening he spoke to the workers, his voice calm but firm. He made it clear that anyone who worked on his land followed his rules. Respect was one of them. After that, the whispers grew softer. Her brother, however, struggled in different ways. He was curious, full of questions and sometimes careless. One day he wandered too close to the animals and was startled by a loud movement. He fell backward into the dirt, unharmed but shaken. The rancher helped him up and spoke gently, explaining where it was safe to walk and where it was not. The boy listened closely, nodding again and again. Later that night, the Apache woman thanked the rancher quietly. He shrugged. "He's a kid. He needs guidance, not fear." The words stayed with her. Weeks turned into months. Slowly, trust began to grow. Not suddenly, not easily, but piece by piece. The rancher remained distant, but he was consistent. His promises held weight. When he said food would be on the table, it was. When he said no one would take the boy, no one did. Still, the Apache woman never fully relaxed. She had learned that safety could vanish without warning. Then one afternoon, everything felt uncertain again. A wagon approached the ranch, raising a trail of dust behind it. The Apache woman noticed it first. Her chest tightened. She watched as it came closer, fear building with every step. The rancher noticed too. He wiped his hands and walked toward the front of the house. Two men stepped down from the wagon. Their clothes marked them as officials of some kind. They asked questions. They spoke of records, of responsibility, of checking arrangements. The Apache woman stood at a distance, her brother holding her hand. His fingers trembled. The rancher answered calmly. He showed papers. He spoke clearly. He did not raise his voice. The men looked at the children. One of them frowned slightly. "How long do you plan to keep them?" he asked. "As long as they need," the rancher replied. The men exchanged looks. They spoke quietly among themselves. The Apache woman held her breath. Finally, the men nodded. They left with polite words and empty promises of return visits. When the wagon disappeared beyond the horizon, the Apache woman sank to the ground, her legs weak. The rancher looked at her. "I meant what I said," he told her. "This is their home for now." She met his eyes, searching for lies, for danger. She found neither. That night she cried silently while her brother slept. Not from fear this time, but from exhaustion. Carrying hope was heavy when you were used to disappointment. She did not know what the future would bring. Trouble still waited beyond the fence. But something had changed. This was no longer just survival. This was the beginning of something fragile, uncertain, and real. And for the first time, she allowed herself to believe that tomorrow might not take everything away. As the seasons changed, life on the ranch began to settle into a steady rhythm. The sharp heat of summer slowly softened, and the air carried cooler mornings and longer shadows in the evenings. For the Apache woman and her brother, each day still demanded effort, but it no longer felt like a fight just to survive. It felt like learning how to live again. The woman rose before dawn, as she always had. But now, instead of wondering where their next meal would come from, she knew there would be food waiting. That knowledge alone changed how she moved through the day. Her shoulders were still tense, but not as tightly drawn as before. She had become skilled at her work. The rancher trusted her with more responsibility, sorting supplies, helping prepare meals, and sometimes managing tasks when others were away. He did not praise her often, but when he nodded in approval, she felt it deeply. Respect, she had learned, could be shown without many words. Her brother grew stronger and more confident. His laughter, once rare, now appeared in short bursts when he played near the house or helped with small chores. He learned how to read signs in the land, when animals were restless, when weather would change. He asked many questions, and to her surprise, the rancher answered most of them patiently. Still, the world beyond the ranch did not forget who they were. When supplies were brought in from nearby towns, the Apache woman noticed how people stared. Some avoided her eyes. Others watched too closely. She felt the weight of being different, of not fully belonging anywhere. One afternoon, while unloading supplies, she overheard two men talking. Their words were low, but she caught enough to understand. They questioned why the rancher had taken them in. They spoke of trouble, of attention, of risk. She kept working, pretending not to hear, but fear crept back into her thoughts. She wondered how long protection could last when the world outside still judged them. That night, she spoke to the rancher. "You don't have to keep us," she said carefully. "If we bring problems—" He interrupted her, not harshly, but firmly. "I make my own choices." She studied his face. There was no anger there, only resolve. "Then I will work harder," she said. "You already do," he replied. Those simple words stayed with her. As time passed, the rancher began to include her in small decisions. He asked her opinion about food storage, about managing tasks when others were sick. This surprised her. She was used to being told what to do, not asked what she thought. Her brother noticed the change too. "He listens to you," the boy said one evening. She smiled softly. Listening does not always mean caring. But deep down, she wondered if, slowly, it did. One day, a strong storm rolled in without warning. Dark clouds covered the sky and the wind grew wild. The animals became restless. Workers rushed to secure fences and shelter livestock. The Apache woman and her brother helped as best they could. Rain poured heavily, soaking the ground and making it slippery. In the chaos, One of the younger workers slipped and hurt his leg. Without thinking, the Apache woman ran to him. She supported his weight, helping him reach shelter. She tore a strip of cloth from her clothing to wrap his leg, using skills learned long before she came to the ranch. The rancher watched silently. After the storm passed, he approached her. "Where did you learn that?" "From my people," she replied. He nodded. It helped. It was the first time he openly acknowledged her past as something valuable, not something to be ignored. At night, as they ate together, the ranch felt different. The workers spoke more freely. The tension that once followed her movements seemed lighter, but peace never lasts without being tested. A letter arrived weeks later, delivered by a rider who did not stay long. The rancher read it alone, his face growing serious. He folded it carefully and placed it in his pocket. The Apache woman noticed the change in him immediately. His steps became heavier, his gaze distant. "What is it?" she asked later. "Nothing you need to worry about," he said. But worry had already taken root. Soon after, strangers began passing near the ranch more often. Riders slowed when they saw the house. Some stopped to ask questions. Others watched from afar. Her brother sensed the tension. "Are they coming for me?" he asked one night, his voice small. She pulled him close. "No one is taking you," she said, though fear trembled beneath her words. Days later, the rancher called her to the porch. "There may be trouble," he said plainly. "People who don't like the arrangement." Her heart pounded. "What do we do?" "We stay ready," he replied. She understood then that his protection came with risk. He was standing against expectations, and not everyone approved. One afternoon, a man from the town came riding in. He spoke sharply, accusing the rancher of breaking rules, of hiding people who should not be there. The rancher did not raise his voice. He stood his ground. "They are under my care," he said. "That's the end of it." The man left angry, warning of consequences. That night, the Apache woman packed their few belongings quietly, just in case. She had learned to prepare for sudden change. Her brother watched her with worried eyes. "Are we leaving?" he asked. "Not yet," she said, "but we must be ready." The next morning, nothing happened, nor the day after. Weeks passed. Slowly, the threat faded into silence. Life returned to its routine, but something had changed within her. She no longer saw herself only as someone being protected. She was contributing. She mattered here. One evening, as the sun set over the land, she stood beside the rancher, watching the fields glow with soft light. "Why did you help us?" she asked suddenly. He was quiet for a long moment. "Because it was wrong to let them be taken," he said simply. She nodded. Sometimes the simplest reasons carried the greatest weight. As darkness settled, she realized something she had not felt in years. A longing. Not certainty, not perfect safety, but a place where her presence was accepted. The future was still uncertain. Challenges still waited. But she was no longer facing them alone. And that made all the difference. The quiet days did not last forever. Trouble rarely announced itself loudly at first. It arrived slowly, through small signs that only those who had known hardship could recognize. The Apache woman felt it before anyone spoke about it. The ranch no longer felt watched from a distance. It felt surrounded. Riders passed more often along the road near the fence. Some slowed down, pretending to adjust their horses. Others stopped to look toward the house without greeting anyone. At night, unfamiliar sounds carried across the land. Nothing clear enough to accuse, but enough to make sleep uneasy. The rancher noticed too. He said little, but his actions changed. He checked the fences twice each evening. He kept his papers close. He spoke quietly with trusted workers and sent others away early. Preparation filled the air like a silent warning. The Apache woman stayed alert. She kept her brother close and taught him what to do if trouble came, where to hide, how to stay quiet, how to wait for her. She never said why. She did not want to place fear in his heart, but she knew better than to pretend danger did not exist. One morning, a group of officials arrived without warning. Their wagon rolled up the road and stopped near the house. Dust hung in the air as they climbed down, faces stiff and serious. The Apache woman felt her chest tighten. Her brother's hand found hers instantly. The rancher stepped forward to meet them. They spoke of inspections, of records that needed to be reviewed, of complaints made by people in town. Their voices were calm, but their eyes were sharp. They asked to see the children. The rancher hesitated only for a moment before nodding. The Apache woman stood tall, even as her heart raced. She would not show fear. Fear invited power. The officials asked questions: where the children slept, what they ate, how they worked. They wrote notes as they spoke. One of them looked at the boy closely, as if measuring him. The woman felt anger rise but held it down. She answered only when spoken to. Her words were clear, careful. Finally, one official said what she had feared. "There are concerns," he said. "This arrangement may not be permanent." Her brother's grip tightened. She felt his fear like a wound. The rancher stepped forward. "They are not being harmed. They are cared for. I will not allow them to be separated." The officials exchanged looks. One sighed. "We'll be in touch," he said. When they left, the ranch felt heavier. The silence that followed was not peaceful. That night, the Apache woman did not sleep. She packed again, folding their few belongings with steady hands. She had done this many times in her life, prepared to leave before being forced. Her brother watched her, quiet and understanding beyond his years. "Will they take me?" he asked. She knelt in front of him. "I won't let them," she said. "No matter what." The next days were filled with tension. Every sound made her turn. Every rider raised her heart into her throat. The rancher worked as if nothing had changed, but she saw the strain in him. He traveled to town more often, returning late with tired eyes. He spoke to lawyers and officials, people who dealt in words and papers instead of fences and cattle. One evening he sat across from her at the table. "They may try again," he said. "They think they can pressure me." "What will you do?" she asked. He looked at her steadily. "I won't give them up." Those words brought relief and fear at the same time. Standing firm had consequences. The pressure increased. Letters arrived, demanding responses. Visits became more frequent. Some workers left, not wanting to be involved. The rancher faced criticism openly. People in town whispered that he was causing trouble, that he should follow expectations. One afternoon, a man confronted him near the fence, accusing him of defiance. Voices rose. The Apache woman watched from a distance, ready to run if needed. The rancher did not step back. His voice remained calm. "Doing what's right isn't always easy," he said. The man left angry, promising more trouble. That night, the Apache woman made a decision. She went to the rancher. "If we leave," she said, "the pressure will stop." He shook his head. "Running won't protect you, but staying puts you at risk," she replied. He met her gaze. "I chose this. The words settled heavily between them. Days later, the final test came. A larger group arrived, more officials than before. This time, their intent was clear. They spoke of authority, of orders that needed to be followed. The Apache woman felt her strength gather. She stood beside her brother, refusing to step away. The rancher presented his documents. He spoke firmly, clearly, without hesitation. He challenged their claims, questioned their authority. Voices rose, tension thickened the air. For a moment, it seemed as though force might be used. The Apache woman positioned herself slightly in front of her brother. Then something unexpected happened. One official, older than the others, read through the papers again. His expression changed. He spoke quietly to the group. They stepped aside to talk. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, the officials returned. Their tone had shifted. "This matter will be reviewed further," the older man said. "For now, the children remain." The Apache woman's knees nearly gave out. She held herself steady. The group left, less confident than before. That night, the ranch felt different. Not safe, not completely, but stronger. The rancher sat outside, staring at the dark sky. The Apache woman joined him. "You didn't have to do this," she said. He nodded. "I know. Why keep fighting?" she asked. He looked at the land, then at her. "Because letting go would haunt me more." She understood then that his choice was no longer just about them. It was about his own sense of right and wrong. As the stars filled the sky, she felt something shift inside her. Fear was still there, but so was pride. They had stood their ground, and no matter what came next, that truth could never be taken from them. Time moved forward, quietly at first, then with growing certainty. After the last visit from the officials, the ranch did not return to exactly what it had been before. Something deeper had changed. The fear did not disappear completely, but it loosened its grip. Life no longer felt like it could collapse at any moment. The Apache woman noticed it in small ways. She slept more deeply. She no longer packed their belongings every few weeks. Her hands stopped shaking when riders passed by the fence. These were small changes, but to her, they meant everything. Her brother changed the most. He began attending a small local school arranged by the rancher. At first, he was nervous. He stayed close to his sister whenever he could, afraid that being seen too often might bring trouble. But the rancher encouraged him gently, reminding him that learning was a strength, not a danger. The boy discovered that he loved reading. Words opened new worlds for him, places where fear did not follow. Each evening he practiced aloud, sounding out letters with pride. His sister listened, amazed at how quickly he was growing. "You are becoming strong in new ways," she told him. He smiled. "So are you." She realized he was right. The Apache woman was no longer just surviving. She was building a life. The rancher trusted her deeply now. He left important matters in her care when he traveled. Workers came to her with questions. Her voice carried weight. One afternoon, a young worker thanked her for helping him learn his tasks. The words caught her off guard. Gratitude was something she had rarely received. As the years passed, the town's attitude slowly shifted. People who once watched from a distance now greeted her with polite nods. Children no longer stared. Familiarity softened fear. The rancher aged quietly. His hair turned gray, his movements slower, but his presence remained steady. He never spoke of what he had risked, never asked for praise. He simply continued living by the choice he had made. One evening, while sitting on the porch, the Apache woman spoke to him. "You changed our lives," she said. He shook his head. "You did that yourselves." She understood what he meant. Being given a chance mattered, but using it mattered more. Her brother grew into a thoughtful young man. He helped manage parts of the ranch and spoke both languages with ease. He remembered where he came from, and he honored it, while also embracing where he was. Sometimes he asked about the past, about their parents, about the moment they nearly lost each other. She told him the truth, but without bitterness. Pain did not have to be passed on to be remembered. Years later, when the rancher passed away peacefully, the loss felt heavy, but not frightening. He left the ranch in careful hands. The Apache woman and her brother were named among those responsible for carrying his work forward. The town gathered for him. People spoke of fairness, of quiet strength, of a man who stood firm when it mattered. As she stood there, listening, the Apache woman felt a deep sense of closure. What had begun as a desperate plea had grown into a legacy of choice, courage, and shared humanity. That night, as the stars filled the sky once more, she sat beside her brother, now grown. "We stayed," he said softly. "Yes," he replied, "and because of that, others learned how to stay too." The wind moved gently across the land, the same land that had once felt like a place of fear. Now, it felt like home. Not because it was perfect, but because it had been chosen. And sometimes, that is enough.